We're working on Prop E, the charter amendment for to provide funding for affordable housing. So I would like to know what your position is regarding that. Someone else would like to know what what you will do to create affordable housing in San Francisco. And the last, actually, there's a tie into this. Because there is a lack of affordable housing, a lot of people who have single-family units convert their garages into garage apartments, and therefore parking in neighborhoods have become horrendous. And so the person who wrote this card would like to know what you will do to address this problem. So, start with you, Sandra.
All right. I absolutely support Prop B, which is a set-aside for affordable housing. I think it's essential that the city set aside a reasonable amount of money from the general budget to make sure that affordable housing is built and exists in perpetuity, because we don't have enough of it, obviously, in this city. What's happened over the last 10 to 15 years is an increase in, frankly, what I call millionaire housing. It's housing that the average person cannot afford to buy. And it's not that we can't have that type of housing, we've built too much of it. So we need to start going in the other direction and make sure that we have affordability. And with the Eastern Neighborhood plan that's coming down the pike, that just left the Planning Commission and is at the Board of Supervisors right now, there's going to be an opportunity for the Board of Supervisors to pass a plan that includes a lot of affordable housing in especially the Mission Corridor, which is going to raise the height limits from 60 feet to 80 feet in exchange for a number of public goods or public benefits. But one of them has to be real affordability. I would love to see affordability up to 50%. I know others would like to see it a lot higher, others would like to see it a lot lower, especially the developers. But I don't really buy into the argument that the developers put forward when they were against Prop F, which was the Lennar Corporation takeover of Candlestick area for development, that they can't afford to build 50% affordability into their housing development. I think they can do it, and we need to challenge them to do that kind of building. In terms of the garage space, the issue is that people are building in-laws, and then people are moving in, there's more cars on the streets.
Well, so they've eliminated their garages and everybody's parking on the street.
So I think the city, if this community wants to legislate along those lines, I'd be willing to work with the community, with community-based organizations to make sure that that issue is solved. I don't think that issue necessarily has to be legislated across the entire city. For example, on chain store development throughout the city, different neighborhoods have different beliefs, and I think we should reckon with that and respect each community's rights.
The flight of families out of San Francisco is something that I've been working on for many, many years now. It's quite concerning when the vast majority of the people you grew up with in this city have had to leave, your family members have had to leave. It's really a struggle to stay in San Francisco, and the biggest issues around our housing and, of course, the connection with our salaries as well, the increase of. But I think the biggest issue we need to think about in terms of housing are a couple of things. One is land, the opportunity to build on land. There are very few opportunities to do that, and when those opportunities open up, like we're opening up in the eastern neighborhoods, which is the northeast part of the Mission, the South of Market, all the way to the piers, is that we need to get the most out of that development. We have to make sure that when those developments open up, we increase the amount of community benefits we get and really get up to the highest levels of affordability and family housing that we can get. In the Eastern Neighborhood plans, if the plan that I'm supporting right now, the only candidate that's actively involved in this, we get our part of the plan, and we can actually build up to 2,500 more affordable housing units that are currently in the plan. We have to work diligently to preserve the existing housing that we have currently, because that is our most valuable housing stock we have. We cannot lose our existing housing site. I'm supporting some legislation that just got introduced at the Board of Supervisors for small site acquisition to actually use our public funds to take some of our smaller sites that are getting threatened in terms of Ellis Act evictions and turned into high-level condos, and keeping those as affordable housing units. That's the quickest and greenest way. In terms of legalizing in-law units, actually that's a citywide issue. It's not a localized issue. This is something every neighborhood is going through if you follow housing closely. And in fact, the biggest issue I support is legalizing in-law units only if they're close to transportation corridors, because then the impact on terms of parking is a little bit less. But it's a controversial issue throughout the city. It's something we have to have a lot of sensitivity with because we need the housing, but also there's a lot of issues in terms of quality of life with neighbors and whatnot.
I do support Proposition B. You know, we have a market economy, and I don't think the market is going to address the issue on its own. I actually think it's unfair for us to expect developers on their own to address the issue of affordable housing. I do think that the city has to play a role. It has to step in and put up some money to actually fund affordable housing projects. I think that's just the reality. That's the only way that affordable housing is going to happen. But I think it's really critical along the lines that Tom was noting, that it's not enough to talk about affordable housing. It's really critical to talk about affordable housing for families. We need to make sure that we have the 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom units being built in San Francisco. And I think that along the lines of working within the market, it does make sense, where appropriate, to provide density bonuses so that you do have an incentive for developers to create housing for families. Something else that I would say is that as strongly as I believe that we need to create low-income housing, I think that's very critical, it's also important not to forget the middle class. A lot of people who feel that they don't make enough money to buy the $1 million homes, but also they make enough that they may not qualify for existing programs. And what's happening to them? I think that's where the city also has to play a role. And I think that the District 9 supervisor is going to have to play a leading role in making sure that that issue is addressed across the board. In terms of the issue of the in-lot units and parking, I do think that Eric is correct, that it's a citywide problem, but I do think that in addressing that citywide problem, we do need to make sure that there's room left in there to make sure that there's flexibility in terms of different neighborhoods having different solutions. The one thing that I would say about driving is that I do think that the city needs to create incentives for people to drive less. And for me, a big focus has to be public transportation. San Francisco should have the best public transportation system in the world. We don't. Muni is unreliable. I talked to so many people who have to leave an extra hour early to make sure they get to their job on time. It takes money and other changes within how Muni operates to make sure that we have the best Muni possible.
Thank you. And we're going to